You ever have that feeling of being completely wiped out, where even a whole weekend of rest doesn't seem to touch the sides? You might think burnout just happens one day, like flipping a switch, but it's not like that at all. It's actually a slow, creeping downward spiral. So today, we're going to map out that entire journey so you can see the signs long before you hit the bottom. So first things first, let's get on the same page. Burnout isn't just having a bad week or feeling stressed. We're talking about a state of chronic physical and emotional exhaustion. The whole idea was first really pinned down by a psychologist, Dr. Herbert Freudenberger, way back in the 70s. And he's the one who realized, hey, this isn't a sudden event. It's a process, something that builds up slowly over time. And, the fact that it's a slow burn is kind of the good news and the bad news, right? The bad news is because it's so gradual, it can totally sneak up on you. But the good news? That means you have a chance to spot it early. So the big question is, where does this whole spiral even begin? Well, believe it or not, it almost always starts from a really positive place, your own ambition. Seriously, the first few phases look a lot like just being a rock star employee or a super dedicated leader. Let's dig into how those good intentions can end up leading you down a pretty dangerous path. It all kicks off with phase 1, the compulsion to prove oneself. This is that fire in your belly, that intense drive to show everyone and yourself that you've got what it takes, that you're valuable. So you start taking on everything. You're the first to volunteer for extra projects. You set these incredibly high standards for yourself. I mean, does any of that sound familiar? And right out of the gate, we get a hint of the antidote. See, the point isn't that ambition is bad. Ambition is great, but unbalanced ambition, that's the problem. It's all about setting goals that are actually achievable and treating rest not like a reward, but as a critical part of your job. Okay, so from that initial urge to prove yourself, you slide right into phase 2, just plain working harder. This is where you start to tell yourself a story, that you're indispensable, that if you don't do it, it won't get done right. So you push and you push and you keep pushing past your limits day in and day out. And this is where we hit the first massive red flag. You start neglecting your own basic needs. All of a sudden, getting a full night's sleep feels like a waste of precious time. You're grabbing junk food between meetings. You're bailing on plans with friends. Work isn't just a priority anymore. It is quickly becoming your only priority. And now we get to the really slippery slope. The changes in these next phases aren't so much about your calendar or your to-do list. They're about what's happening inside your own head. And this is where it gets really tricky, because these internal shifts are way harder for you and for others to notice. In phase 4, all that internal pressure starts to leak out. Your stress from overworking is building up, but instead of recognizing where it's really coming from, you start pointing fingers. You get snappy with your family, you lose patience with your colleagues. The real problem is inside you, but you're acting like the whole world is out to get you. Then comes what might be the most critical turning point of all, the revision of values. Those things that used to make you you, your hobbies, your friendships, your family, they start to feel less important, maybe even like distractions. Your entire sense of self-worth gets completely wrapped up and tangled in your job performance. And this, right here, shows that shift perfectly. Just look at the difference. You go from having this rich, multifaceted identity to a single one, defined only by your career. It's a really stark picture of just how much you can lose without even noticing it's gone. And next up, well, denial kicks in hard. In phase 6, you might find yourself getting cynical, maybe even a bit aggressive. And when people get worried and try to talk to you about it, you just brush them off. You blame the system, your boss, your clients, anyone but yourself for the pressure you're feeling. You absolutely refuse to see your own role in this cycle. That denial, it naturally leads to withdrawal. Think about it. Social events start to feel like just another chore, another drain on your already empty battery. So you start pulling away. You ghost your friends, you avoid family gatherings, and you end up cutting yourself off from the very people who could help you, which just makes the loneliness and the stress 1,000 times worse. And that is precisely why this piece of advice is so incredibly important. You have to actively fight that urge to isolate yourself. It's a conscious choice. Your friends and family, that support network, they are your lifeline when you're getting pulled under by this current. So all of this has been building, and now we reach the crisis point. In these final stages, all that internal damage starts showing up on the outside in ways that are pretty much impossible for anyone to ignore. The problem is no longer your secret. In phase 8, the people around you are definitely noticing that something is off. There are obvious changes in your behavior. And ironically, your work, the very thing you sacrificed everything for, starts to fall apart. You might have these sudden emotional outbursts or just seem completely checked out. Then comes something really unsettling: depersonalization. This is this profound, weird feeling of detachment. It's like you're a robot just going through the motions of your own life. You feel like you're watching a movie about yourself instead of actually living it, and you lose any real connection to your own feelings or accomplishments. And that feeling of detachment, it just hollows you out, which leads straight to phase 10, a deep inner emptiness. There's just this giant void inside, a sense of hopelessness. And often, people will try to fill that void with anything they can find, unhealthy coping mechanisms, just to feel something, or maybe to numb the feeling of emptiness altogether. Now, this is a really crucial point. We have to be clear here. Prolonged, severe burnout can absolutely intensify and evolve into clinical depression. And that's way more than just feeling sad. It's a serious mental health condition. If you recognize these symptoms in yourself or in anyone else, getting professional help is not optional, it is absolutely essential. And finally, the spiral hits rock bottom. Burnout syndrome. This is a state of total and complete collapse. We're talking physical, mental, and emotional. At this stage, you often feel literally unable to function, and recovery from this requires significant professional intervention. Okay, that was a pretty bleak picture, I know. But here's the thing. Understanding the path is the absolute first step to getting off of it. So let's talk about how to break the cycle. Because just recognizing where you are on this spiral is the key to turning the whole thing around. So what are the big takeaways here? First, pay attention to those early signs, the ones hiding inside your own ambition. Second, you have to treat self-care as a non-negotiable part of your performance, not a luxury. Third, constantly check in with yourself. What do you value beyond your job title? Fourth, lean on your support system. Don't push them away. And maybe most important of all, please remember that asking for professional help is never a sign of weakness. It is the absolute strongest thing you can do. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Now that you've seen all 12 phases laid out like this, what is just one small, totally manageable step you can take today to protect your own well-being and start reversing that spiral?